Good morning, Mata Nui! Welcome back to another episode of the Barraki Talk Show. We're your hosts, the Malice brothers,
Jacob,
Samuel,
Thomas, and we're glad you're joining us today as we talk our way through the weird and wondrous world of Bionicle. But first, coming up on the Barraki Talk Show.
just like all humans, they have the ability to telepathically communicate with themselves.
They're literally like, that sounded better in my head. This is getting too boxer, though, which by its definition means off topic.
we're gonna just start saying if something's off topic, like it's Boxor now.
Yeah. All that and more coming up on the Barraki Talk Show.
Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy, but here's my Chronicler. Bohrok, call me maybe.
On today's episode of the Barraki Talk Show, we're going to be looking at the Bohrok-Kal. Who are they? Where'd they come from? What are they doing? And most importantly, before we start this episode, place a bet on how many times we'll say the word call. If you're within 200, you get a special gift from our team here at the Barraki Talk Show. It's a big old hug and smooch on the lips.
I will not be doing that.
I will abstain from betting at all.
I'll give them a sticker or something.
So, what makes the Bohrok-Kal different from normal non-Kal Bohrok? That is the question of today's episode. Before we start off, we have our resident non-expert Samuel. Give us, what do you know of the Bohrok-Kal?
Thank you for classifying me as the resident non-expert. I really felt like I was missing a title here. Let's see. Bohrok-Kal are the kind of second wave of the Bohrok, but there are only one of each. It's not a whole swarm of Bohrok-Kal because they're special. I honestly don't know why they're special. Like, I don't know what sets them apart besides the fact that they have different powers, but I don't know why there's only one of them versus whole swarms. So that I really don't know. But there were 6 of them to match the Toa. A
classic.
Yeah, exactly. Same colors as the Toa, but they were unique in the fact that their elemental powers were different. So we discussed previously how there were actually more than just the 6 elemental powers, and the Bohrok-Kal sort of align with most of those, right? Mm-hmm. So not exactly, but they do align mostly. So they have more unique, kind of bizarre powers that I guess we'll get into.
Especially for early Bionicle, because early Bionicle didn't go crazy with wacky powers like later Bionicle does.
Something that I do recall here is that the Bohrok-Kal were meant to free the Bahrag queens, right? That was their mission. So I guess that's what sets them apart, what makes them unique. But still, I don't know why there were so few of them, like why they were specific. Like if the Bahrag could just make a whole bunch of them, why didn't they? Because they're so much more powerful than the regular Bohrok. Anyway, I don't know, but that's pretty much what I understand about them.
Honestly, I'm kind of in the same boat as Samuel. I don't actually know all that much about the Bohrok-Kal. I basically everything Samuel said is pretty much what I know as well. I do know they are silver.
Very nice aesthetic, yes. To match those silver Nuva plates, chest plates. Yeah.
Silver on silver.
Yep.
Yeah. So the reason the Bohrok-Kal were created was to free the Bahrag, right? They were mutated with an unknown mutagen. The suspected origin of the mutagen will be explained in the Chronicler section.
Wait, real quick before you go on, can I ask? So they were created specifically to free the Bahrag queens.
They were created if anything should stop the swarms or imprison or stop the Bahrag to get rid of that obstacle.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
So they created essentially as a backup and a fail-safe in case the Bahrag went crazy. And they actually ejected as soon as the Bahrag were imprisoned, the Bohrok-Kal were unleashed. So right at the end of like when they seal them into the protodermis seal, boom, Bohrok-Kal are out going around. So it is immediate when they go. They're different in a lot of different ways. The main one being they are purely independent beings. So the normal Bohrok are a hive mind insect-like, whereas the Bohrok-Kal are highly intelligent and individualistic. They have a leader, but it's not like the Bahrag over normal Bohrok, they can just straight up mind control them. With the Bohrok-Kal, they're all equals who work together, just like the Toa in that instance. Although they don't hold to the 3 virtues, right? Which will be part of their downfall later on. And some of them aren't crazy about the Toa-Kal as leader. It doesn't come to a head, but it's just like, they're like, nah, I don't think he's right about what he's ordering us to do. They're highly intelligent, and they're also super duper malicious. Like, these guys are evil and they love causing pain, which is a distinct difference from both the Bahrag and the Bohrok.
Yeah.
Because the Bohrok normal ones just leave the Toa alone. They're like, oh, they're not our mission, they're whatever. The Bohrok-Kal specifically go out of their like way to fight and humiliate the Toa because they enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
And they don't kill them because they're so prideful. They're like, yeah, they're not a threat. It's like, we can just take them out again and again, which we'll get into the events section is actually kind of true. Like, they're pretty solidly justified on that count.
Pretty funny. They just took the antagonist to the ultimate extreme. They were like, yeah, we're just going to be as annoying to these guys as we possibly can.
Exactly. And I always liked them for that because we had the normal Bohrok book and the Bohrok-Kal book growing up. And I always like the Bohrok-Kal book better because I'm like, I love when they get destroyed because I hate these guys so much.
I will always remember the satisfaction I felt when, I think it's Galak, is that the gravity one?
No, that's Nuvok.
Nuvok just compresses itself
into a
dies.
black hole. Yeah. Hey, don't spoil what happens in the event section.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Jeez.
They could, another special trait of them, they could communicate telepathically with themselves.
With each other.
Yes, with with each other, not themselves. And
just like all humans, they have the ability to telepathically communicate with themselves.
And they could also communicate with nearby beings, which is what one of the normal Chronos power is. All the Bohrok-Kal Chrona can do that. They're also in the vein of keeping them as separate beings. They retain memory across Chrona. So if a new Chronicler is put into a Bohrok-Kal shell, it will retain the same personality and memories. Whereas normal Bohrok, since they're not entities, each new Chrona you put in is essentially a new person. Yeah. So they're just a single person, right? It'd be like switching masks for a Matoran. That's what switching Chronicle is for a Bohrok-Kal. On their elemental powers, 5 of them have the elemental powers that will be later canonized as Matoran tribe powers as well. But one of them is the power of vacuum, which is technically classified as a sub-element of air elemental power. So it's like, that doesn't make any sense.
Welcome to Bionicle.
That's a good point. Anyway, on their elemental's power, they're actually equal, if slightly less skilled than a Toa, and have the same essential amounts of elemental reserves as a Toa when controlling their element, which I think is interesting. So it's like you basically have 6 random Toa rolling around doing whatever. They have very good control, as shown. They can make constructs of their elements. Like, you know how Kopaka can make like a wall of ice? The Sonic Bohrok, he can make like a wall of sound and control where it goes, what speed it goes to, how high it is. It's like they have very good levels of elemental manipulation. They have controlled bursts, single targets, AoEs, combo attacks. Like, they are highly proficient at what they do and with working with each other when the time comes, which makes for really interesting antagonists. They do have limited range and powers, just like a Toa is, and their major weakness / trait is they are no more durable than a normal Bohrok. So if you get up close and personal to them, it'd just be like fighting a normal Bohrok, which for a Toa is really easy. They take out normal Bohrok by the dozens. So that's one interesting factor. So they have to use their elemental powers a lot just to keep people away, because in close range, they're useless.
Yeah.
So the Bohrok-Kal proper, there are 6 of them, as stated earlier. There's Toa-Kal, who has electricity as his power. He's the de facto leader, but not the absolute leader. He's just leader by vote, and the Bahrag are like, yeah, someone be the leader. He's not very smart. I don't think he personally makes the correct decisions a lot of the times, which we'll see later in the events. Most of the Bohrok-Kal don't have super defined personalities apart from each other. They're mostly just malicious and evil. The Bohrok-Kal is the Bohrok-Kal of plasma. This one, though, is especially malicious even by Kal standards. He goes out of his way to like taunt the Toa and beat up Tahu, which is funny. There's the Nuva Kal, he's the Bohrok-Kal of gravity. He's the most maneuverable, and he's often found going through Lee Koro because he can just either float up stuff or make it so dense that it gets out of his way. And this is another way to that shows their control over elements. He can keep it that way pretty much permanently. So like he knocks down a tree one time and makes it like super dense, and it just sits there super dense when they come across it, which I'm like, oh, that's really cool. There's Bohrok-Kal, who's the Bohrok-Kal of Sonics. He's the most powerful as given by feats in the story because he takes out the most Toa the most often. He's sadistic like all the others. The other Bohrok-Kal aren't huge fans of him because his sonic powers are particularly effective against Bohrok because like they're sonic sensitive. And the Toa fear him the most because he whoops them so many times, and losing to the sonic Bohrok stinks because you just have a loud ringing in your ears forever. Not forever, but for a long time. Then the last two are Bohrok-Kal, who's magnetism, and Bohrok-Kal, who's vacuum. Bohrok-Kal unfortunately gets ignored pretty much lore-wise. It only participates in the attack on Po-Koro, and then it only has one other significant scene that takes place directly after that. So it's like someone of the 6 people always gets shunted lore-wise. It was just Bohrok-Kal this time. And then Bohrok-Kal, the only interesting thing is that he was classified as a subset of air. He does a few other things, but that's pretty much it.
Real quick question. Were the Bohrok-Kal gendered? Were they referred to as like a gendered? Or were they just it? Because I know the original Bohrok were not gendered.
Yeah, I don't believe the Bohrok-Kal are gendered either. I would have to check into that, but nothing I was reading had them gendered. Yeah, they're not gendered. Like I said, they're not really super detailed personalities because they were meta-wise, they were just made as a placeholder so they could spend more time making Mask of Light stuff. Because Bohrok-Kal were 2003, as was Mask of Life, first half of the year, second half of the year. So that's why they're such a retread, because they're like, stall for time, you know? So the Bohrok-Kal also have Chronicler, which all have their own unique and individual powers, just like the normal Chrono.
Which is super strange because they're the same exact shape as the other Chrono.
Well, so are the Bohrok-Kal, but they have different powers too.
Good point.
But I don't see you complaining.
I am complaining.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Getting back on topic for the Chronicle, the first of them was the Chronicler Kal, which has the power of awakening. This awakens the Bahrag upon physical contact in conjunction with the Nuva Cube. It's the most important one, obviously. The Chronicler Kal gives telepathy and limited mind reading.
Really quickly,
Yeah.
You called them both Za. The first one should be Sha.
Sha.
Right?
XA.
Yeah.
Second one is Za. ZA.
Jaw.
I'm sorry. My pronunciation is fantastic as always. The third one is the Chronicler Kal, which grants speed and flight, and it gives higher speed than normal. There's the Chronicler. What is that? The Chronicler Kal? Chronicler Kal. This gives a mental link and a homing beacon on the Bahrag, which are like, oh, if the Bohrok-Kal spend all their time trying to find the Bahrag, that seems like it would be super useful. And you would be right, because originally it was stated that it had a very short detection radius, so they had to get close to the Bahrag to use it. Then later it was stated it had infinite range, and it could always figure out what the Bahrag was. But it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would that be the case? So it's unclear on how it actually functions. And as a short note, none of these Chronicle powers show up in the story. All of these have no impact on any plot events. So I'm like, why did you make all these powers if they don't do anything?
Greg likes making powers.
Greg's like, I got tons of powers.
Greg loves powers.
Billions and billions.
That's why we have 40,000 Makuta powers,
of
okay? And like 85 billion Rakshi.
That's a good point. Well, all the Rakshi have Makuta powers, except the Heat Vision Rakshi, which have Heat Vision, which is not a Makuta power. I don't know why.
We love you, Greg.
So, finishing the list of the Chrono, the last four are the Chrono Yo Kal, which is Earth Attunement, so like basically a Po Toa, and you can sense weird fractures and cracks in stone. And tunneling, you can sense stress points in the earth and whatever, blah, blah, blah. The Chronicler call is radar and enhanced senses, which I feel like the Sonic Bohrok call wouldn't have any use for. That's probably the one he wears. They like giving people redundant abilities, as we'll see with Toa Nuva next week. The Chronicler call, which its nickname is the Demolisher. It has strength, grants strength, endurance, heat, and cold resistance. And then the last one is the Chronicler call, which is infrared and X-ray vision. It allows the Bohrok Kal to see in the dark and through almost any substance. Essentially, it's just like the mask of X-ray vision. So that's all the Chrono, and they have the same shapes as their non-call brethren, I guess.
Yeah, the only difference is the color.
Mm-hmm. And they're all silver.
It is so weird that
metallic.
Yeah.
It's weird that they gave them such specific like powers that they just don't use, because some of them are so powerful. You're like, why? Like, if you had this, wouldn't you be using it? But
I'm sure there's some obscure lore reason why they don't use them.
You would think. There's nothing. There's so little lore on the Bohrok-Kal. It's astounding.
Yeah.
They really are just filler.
Yeah.
Right? Most of the lore focuses on their demise, which are all pretty funny, in my opinion. And they raise some interesting questions. But if that's all, we are moving on into the events of the Bohrok-Kal. What do they do for the brief time that they're around? Well, what happens when the Toa Mata defeat the Bahrag and they get dropped into the protodermis cubes? They fly out as Toa Nuva. When this happens, the Nuva Symbols all appear above their suvas, right, in their home villages. Now, as they were getting dropped into the tubes, that's presumably when the Bohrok-Kal were awakened, right? They start scouting out the villages because they are able to contact the Bohrok swarms normally, right? So the Bohrok swarms, including mostly the Bohrok-Va, are able to give the Bohrok-Kal information about what's going on in the villages. So the Bohrok-Va are like, weird things showed up, right? So the Bohrok-Kal go to check it out, figured out that these Nuva symbols are related to the Toa Nuva, and they all steal them so that they can use them on the Nuva cube to free the Bahrag, right? So essentially they come up, get that information, and immediately steal the Nuva cubes. Like, it is minutes to hours from the time of their awakening in the Toa Nuva's transformation that they steal these cubes. It's fast. So the Toa are like, oh dang, we're out of elemental powers now. Let's go fight the Bohrok-Kal. So they track them all down in a big group because Tahu puts up a big shield, right? They shoot plasma, which gets blocked by the shield. And then Nuva Kal just gravity knocks them all down on their feet and they all pass out. It's like just a 2-hit KO. It's like, oh, they're obviously really powerful. So then Toa Kal is like, okay, I want to annoy the Toa Nuva some more, because all of the Nuva masks appeared on the island, right, for the Toa Nuva to find. Toa Kal's like, everyone, if you're going and doing whatever and you find a Nuva mask, grab it so the Toa can't use it, because he's a jerk like that. So this leads to the story engine, essentially, of the book, where the Toa Nuva are trying to find mask and trying to stop the Kal, all while the Kal are trying to find the Bahrag. And the Toa Nuva also don't know the Bahrag are alive or where they are. So it's like they're confused what the Bohrok-Kal are doing for a large portion of the story. This is where the individual stories take place. And this Nuva Kal first goes to Lee Koro, and this is where he gets ambushed by Lua and Tahu. What they do is they're like, okay, these Bohrok-Kal are annoying. Lee Koro doesn't want to get invaded again, right? They have a bad experience with the Bohrok. So they have like all of the Matoran hide in trees around an area with a mask of power. And so when the Nuva Kal comes rolling through, Lua and Tahu distract it, while all the Matoran throw just random junk and garbage that they can find at the Nuvok. So the Nuvok is like, blocking all the way with its elemental powers, but Lua goes in to like lift up his faceplate and grab it. Lua didn't know his elemental powers weren't depleted, so he gets dropped to the ground, and Nuva Kal barely manages to escape while Tahu's tending to Lua. So I was like, wow, that was actually a good plan, pretty effective. I think they should have done more of that, but alas, they never do. But I would think this is a really cool instance of the low physical durability of the Bohrok-Kal being interesting, because like if a Toa gets near one, it's game over for them, right? So next, Tahu, because the normal Bohrok swarms are about at this time, So Tahu takes a bunch of Tanakh who have been reprogrammed. He's like, okay, we're going to go and fight Nuva Kal. So he takes all the Tanakh, right? He has like an army of them. Nuva Kal turns around because he's just rolling around. He's like, oh, okay. And he sends all of the Tanakh into orbit. Just shoots them out of this stratosphere. And Tahu's like, okay, bro. So he has to retreat, right? Because he lost his entire army.
I have to say, though, that scene leads to one of the coolest promotional images in Bionicle. Yeah. If you just like look up Tahu leading the Tanakh or something, it's actually insanely cool.
If you guys can't see the picture, I urge you to look it up because that is really cool.
It'll also be included in the video if you guys are watching that.
Yeah.
So,
what were you going to say, Samuel?
I was going to say, like, why didn't he just launch Tahu into the stratosphere too? He wanted to toy with him.
Yeah,
he wanted to get a few more hits in before he absolutely demolished him.
That is the canon reason. They just love beating the Toa. Like, it's their favorite pastime. But continuing on. Oh, yeah. After he sends them all into the stratosphere, they're like, the Bohrok-Kal are like, okay, we don't want them using the swarms against them. So they order all of the swarms back to their nests, which is why you don't see any Bohrok around during Mask of Light movie. Then Pohatu and Onua, they're like, we got a plan, and it's Pohatu and Onua, so obviously the plan's going to work, right? They're going after Tanakh Kal, who's been rolling around Onu Koro, and they had this, he's the Bohrok of electricity. So like, here's our genius plan. We'll get a really polished, shiny boulder, and we're going to have Onua distract him, shoot lightning. We'll have, and here's how it plays out. So Onua's distracting him. Tanakh Kal shoots lightning. Pohatu kicks the boulder, which deflects the lightning, not back into the Bohrok, into a tree behind the Bohrok, which breaks it and has it fall on the Bohrok-Kal.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm like, what a weird, convoluted, just kick the boulder at him. If it's deflecting lightning, he can't do anything. But no, that's not smart enough. Onua knew what was going on. He Onua what was going on. So anyway, that's how the goat Onua and Pohatu got the Tanakh Kal's Chronicler. And they were actually able to interrogate it. This is where they figure out from it that the Bohrok-Kal are looking for the Bahrag. And they're like, you're stupid. We killed the Bahrag. And they're like, no, that can't be true. As they're talking to this, though, Bohrok-Va sneaks up behind it, puts a new Chronicler in the Tanakh Kal, and it just rolls away. It's like, oh, dang.
I do have a question. How do they talk to the Chronicler?
Telepathically.
Okay, so it's just... But why is it willing to talk to them?
What part of they hate the Toa and they love taunting them? Are you not understanding?
Chatty dudes.
I guess.
Dude, the
I feel like you can taunt them without telling them exactly what you're after.
Tanakh Kal, as noted before, is not very intelligent.
The Bohrok-Kal freaking talk more than almost any other character in all of these series.
I think the Paraka are the only villains that talk more than the Bohrok-Kal.
They are chatty as heck. These guys love the sound. Well, I was gonna say they love the sound of their own voice. They love the
neurons.
They love the perceived sound of their own voice in their brains.
They're literally like, that sounded better in my head. So the next event that happens is Lua is tracking the Bohrok-Kal, who's the Bohrok-Kal of Sonic. And so he's like stealthily going through the woods, and the Bohrok-Kal's riding through, and he's like, finally, I got it. But it was a trap, and, because he has good hearing, the Bohrok turns around, just blasts him with sonic energy, which in one of the cases of like long-lasting effects, like the Nuva Kal in the tree, he leaves the sonic energy around Lua for hours, so long that he passes out, and Golly and Kopaka have to come and find him and be like, what the heck happened to you? Because he's just writhing in the mud for like, I'm like, wow, that's so sad. Poor Lua.
That sounds miserable.
Yeah. And that's when they're like, yeah, we don't like that guy. So then they're like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to team up on him. So they find him and they turn into the Toa Kaita, right? On just Bohrok-Kal. And they're like, oh, we're going to beat him to heck, right? Then Bohrok-Kal just like whistles or something. And two other Bohrok-Kal come out and form their own Kaita and just one shot the Toa Nuva Kaita. And so
that's gonna be the Kaita jaw, which is also Bohrok-Kal and Bohrok-Kal. Just a FYI for you that care.
Yeah. So I don't know how you had vacuum powers and sound powers in the same blast that they shoot, but it happened. I'm not joking, because the Bohrok-Kal shot was a combination of all their elements. So it's like, sure, those physics check out, Greg.
Because as we all know, you can definitely hear sound in a vacuum.
Correct. As Star Wars has proven again and again,
Right.
Sound in a vacuum. Anyway, they all end up on the ground in the mud, writhing in agony for hours. So Lua happened it twice in a row. So what a bummer.
That's rough.
I know. I'm like, that's rough, buddy. Now, this is some obscure lore that happens off screen in one of the comics. It doesn't even have an off screen in one of the books. They're talking with Nokama, and Nokama mentions that a Boxor happened to solo a Bohrok-Kal off screen. That's like, what? Not the army of Boxors they have. Not even a Boxor piloted by a Matoran we know. Just a random Boxor 1v1s a Bohrok-Kal and wins. Okay, bro. I believe you.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
At this point, why weren't they going to New Peru and being like, can you build like a bunch of these for us?
I mean, he did. They had a whole army.
Is that what? Okay,
Yeah.
so they did.
That's
have
how they saved Lee Koro.
Oh, that's right. I remember. Yeah.
Quick question about the Boxors. I don't want to get too off topic, but
Boxors are never off topic.
Boxors by their very definition are off topic, okay? Don't come for me on that one.
I was going to say, I don't think you know what a definition is.
No, but I was wondering, okay, so are Boxors all the same design? Like, do they all look the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Then after that, Bohrok-Kal goes over to Ta Koro, and he's just kind of rolling around, and Tahu comes out. And this is the Bohrok-Kal of plasma, so it's all hot, right? And Tahu doesn't have his elemental resistance to heat. So, and he's mad about that. He's like, grr, I'm gonna get you, Bohrok-Kal. And his armor is literally melting off of him. Like, the further he goes, because the Bohrok-Kal is set up just like a big field of plasma that's radiating heat, the farther he walks into, the more he's sinking into the ground, because it's turning into lava. And so it's taunting him the whole time. And eventually he has to back off, because Jalar is coming out with the Ta Koro guard. He's like, back up, Tahu. Like, this is where he gives the whole speech I elaborated on earlier, where he's like, you don't have the right to die in vain, right? It's your duty to protect us. You can't do that by being foolhardy and dying. And so the Bohrok-Kal takes this and he's like, yeah, Tahu, you loser. You don't have any elemental powers. And that's when Jalar sneaks up behind the Bohrok-Kal and he rips his head off and takes the Chronicler out by himself. And then he shows it to Tahu.
What a goat.
Base Jalar.
I know. I'm like, heck yeah, get him, Jalar.
This is why Jalar's my favorite.
I thought it was Jalar's little crab.
I do love that crab.
Close second. Third
Wait,
is
Jala
Hafu.
has a crab too?
Yes.
Oh,
Jalar
Jalar
has
has
a
a crab.
There's a lot of crabs in Bionicle, okay?
Because I was like, Puku?
Puku!
co-owned.
We love Puku.
Dakua got Puku in the divorce.
What?
Thomas, love is not
Love
canon.
is
How
not
many times
canon.
do
Why
we
do you
have to
think they
talk
got
about
divorced?
It was completely platonic.
I don't think I ever.
Taku was like,
I don't think you love me anymore. I never loved you.
Dang. Love's not canon, Jalar.
Next second goes over to Holly. Hey.
That'll be the next episode where we
Yep.
discuss how love might actually be canon.
Heavily implied to be canon. So, when they take off that Krana, they interrogate it, and it's like, oh yeah, we actually found where the Bahrag are. So, eat that, Toa. And again, while they're talking to this, a Bohrok-Va comes up behind the Bohrok-Kal, slaps a new Chronicle in, and it rolls away.
You'd really think they would have learned at this point.
You would think, but Bohrok-Va are very sneaky.
They are very small.
Is there a reason that they named them Parok and Nuvok, but then all of the other ones, the prefixes match? Like
Why is it not Bohrok
Rock
and Onurok?
Yeah.
Uh,
Just because.
No clue.
So, Samuel, you have to remember our motto. Bionicle doesn't make any sense. There are certain things that you just cannot explain,
All right,
okay?
I'll accept it.
Yeah, so the Toa all gather and they're like, okay, we got to go back to the Bahrag cave, even though it's all broken down and sealed off, right? So they go there, and they're like, oh, how are we going to get in, right? Pohatu doesn't have his elemental powers. And that's when they notice a giant burned hole straight through the earth to the cave, because Bohrok-Kal, he just burned right down, because he can do that. And so they're like, okay, we'll follow him down there. So they follow the Bohrok-Kal down there, and that's where they find that the Kal are just annihilating the Exo-Toa armor. Like, it's not even a close competition. They have the Bohrok-Kal of magnetism. Metal suits of armor are toast.
The Exo-Toa are in like automatic mode.
Yes. So the Exo-Toa are, since they're purely robotic, they can be programmed with like a Sentinel program, and that's what they were set to automatically, guarding the Bahrag. So they get all destroyed, unfortunately. And so then the Bohrok-Kal approach the Nuva Cube, and they're about to put the stuff in. That's when Tahu hits them with the Mask of Time, and they're all frozen. And so the only way that they can beat the Bohrok-Kal is by feeding their elemental energy into the Nuva Symbols, which the Kal will then absorb because they're holding them, right? And so this kind of gets into a weird thing, because their elemental energy is not directly linked to what element they are. So elemental energy is just an energy that they can use. So like if an ice Toa absorbed the elemental energy of a fire Toa, he would have like twice as much elemental energy, which he could only use as ice, right? Elemental energy is not tied to whatever element it is, which is weird to me, right?
That is really weird.
So they have, like, in this case, they have elemental energy, but they still don't have their elemental powers.
Correct. They have no way to output the elemental energy.
Yeah.
So I thought that's a weird thing, but I think it's interesting enough to have as part of the Bionicle lore. So that's why the Kal are able to get it, because it is just pure elemental energy, not associated with a specific element yet. So after the Kal absorb all that energy and the Vahi wears off, they're like, this is where the answer to the question, why don't the Bahrag make more Bohrok-Kal? Because when the Bohrok-Kal get all that power, like, we don't need the Bahrag. We can do whatever the heck. We can rule the swarms ourselves. Which, in case, giving tons of power to super sadistic and malicious, insubordinate guys, it never goes well for anyone, right? And so the Bahrag are yelling at them like, no, just open the cube. Okay, we got to get out of here. You're all going to die. They're like, nah, we'll be fine. They are not, in fact, fine. So all their powers overload, and they get destroyed in pretty creative ways. Bohrok-Kal, he gets trapped in electricity. It's like a cage of electricity, like how the Sonic Bohrok-Kal made like a wall of Sonics. It's just like a cage of electricity that he can't get out of without frying to death. So he just stays in there until he starves to death and runs out of power, essentially. Bohrok-Kal, who's the plasma one, he gets so hot that he just melts down through to the core of the planet.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like, dang. And then Nuva Kal, he formed a small black hole, like you said, and just got totally crumpled up and disappeared. Bohrok-Kal, the sonic one, it creates a sonic cage like the electricity one, except this one actually hit him, and it was so violent that it vibrated his molecules apart, and he just turned to dust. That's a pretty fitting end for the most evil Bohrok-Kal, who's the magnetism one. All of its magnetism was running wild, so all of the broken Exo-Toa pieces shot into the Bohrok and just crumpled it. And then finally, Nuva-Kal, he's my favorite. Since he's the power of vacuum, right? You know what he did to the Tanakh earlier? That's what he did. He shot up through the cavern, breaking up through every layer of Mata Nui to the sky, and flung himself into low Earth orbit. Yeah, canonically, like, just floating around.
So, and since the Bohrok are mechanical and the Krana don't necessarily need to breathe, is it possible that it's just still alive?
Yeah.
Out in orbit?
As far as we know, it was still just totally conscious of what was going on.
That's actually the worst death.
Yeah. At least it has all those Tanoks there to just hang out with.
Yeah. So since all the Bohrok-Kal were in close proximity, like the Bahrag, their Chronicles were completely and totally invincible. So when all of the Bohrok-Kal shells got destroyed, the Chronicle were just able to crawl away, except obviously Bahrag and Levok. Those were stuck in the shell for the ride. So I don't know if they would die eventually or if they still retain that invincibility. I like to think they were invincible and just couldn't do anything. It's funnier to me. And to showcase the total invincibility of this, the one in Nuva Kal that was in the black hole, totally fine.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm like, dang, that is some invincibility right there.
Lego's no killing policy did a lot of heavy lifting in this.
Yep, exactly. So, I like these endings for the Bohrok because it shows thematically that they aren't following any of the three virtues, right? They're not united. They're all like, oh, I'm going to be their own master or whatever. They're not following their duty. They're not freeing the Bahrag at all, right? And also they're not following their destiny because they weren't destined to do any of that. It's just random junk they decided. Maybe it was their destiny to die and lose, but that's not for me to judge, really. So it thematically defeats them, and they're also defeated by the Toa, who it thematically proves don't need their elemental powers to be heroes, right? They're heroes all throughout the story, protecting the Matoran, trying their best. So I thought it was
Very
kind
wholesome.
of a fitting end. Yeah. So eventually the Turaga come in, they capture all the Chronicle, probably put them in a cave in Pauahi and forget about them. And then the Toa collected their Nuva Symbols and they hid them who knows where, but no one ever finds them again.
Good choice.
Yeah.
They're
Good
probably in a
choice.
cave in Pauahi.
Yeah. Right next to the
the
Chronicle.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just staring at him like, grrr.
That would actually be hilarious.
That would be funny. But one important note going forward is that the Toa now know the Bahrag are alive, where they are, and how to free them. So that will be important later. I'll tell you, that will be important later. Any thoughts?
Much like Hafu.
Yes, much like Hafu, who main character energy later. What do you guys think of the Bohrok-Kal?
I actually like them. Like, even though they seem like an afterthought or a placeholder, like, just get something in there. They've always been one of the most interesting parts of the story because they're so unique in personality.
Mhm.
Like, I remember reading the books and I remember thinking, these guys are just crazy. Like, they're fun to read about and fun to think about. And they feel very powerful, right? Like, they showcase their power. And so it makes you feel like the Toa are actually threatened. That's, I don't know, it makes for a really compelling story. So I liked them. I thought that they did a good job throwing something together, if that was the case, like, just to fill the story space. Like,
Yeah.
it worked really well.
There's such a like unique change of pace, and even like really unique in what would come later too. Because think about it this way. Okay, 2001, mindless beast with the Rahi, right? 2002, mindless beasts with the original Bohrok. Then we get 2003, where we have the Bohrok-Kal, which are, you know, these hyper intelligent creatures. And then we go to the Rakshi, which are essentially mindless beasts.
Yeah.
And then after that, we go to the Vaki, which are mindless beasts.
They're mindless
Robots.
Yes.
And then we go to the Vizrak, which are mindless beasts.
Then you
And
hit the
it's like-
Baraka.
Then we finally, and then actually from there on,
Yeah,
it's
you
all
have
very intelligent, like
sentient,
super intelligent
Yeah.
villains.
Yeah.
But it's such an interesting, like, unique change of pace. I feel like it's something that Greg was just allowed to have a lot of fun with. And he went crazy.
Oh yeah, they definitely make up more than the sum of their parts. Because on paper you're like, oh, retread. Why would I care about these guys? But reading, you're like, yeah, kill those dwarves. I hate them.
And it also gives the Toa like a really like satisfying and definitive victory. Also, and it shows that the Toa are actually smart and can work together as well.
Oh, I also think it gives them a good opportunity to, like, describe how the Toa, all the facets of the Toa work, right? Because we've talked about their elemental powers, but then their elemental energy, and just understanding how they've changed becoming Nuva, right? And how they're trying to figure that all out. And so I think it works really well. It's really compelling. And it just allows you to explore the Toa more, especially in personality, because they're coming up with these strong personalities in the Bohrok-Kal. And so it's kind of fun just to see those interactions and understand the characters of the Toa a little bit better.
Yeah, it definitely brings out, especially the powerlessness or elementally powerless aspect. It really makes you see different sides of the Toa. One thing I like about these early series is because a lot of times there'll be like a character who has a mishmash of abilities. Like the Paraka have like a ton of different abilities, and you never get to see them without one of those abilities. Whereas the Toa, we get to see them with just their mass powers, like just their physicality, just their elemental powers. It's like, okay, I understand why the Toa need all of these to be the effective super Toa heroes that they are. So it's interesting exploring that. You are now entering the Chronicler's Corner. The following content may not be appropriate for viewers unaware or unacquainted with the wider Bionicle lore, as major plot points and reveals will be spoiled. If you wish to avoid this section, skip to this time in the podcast.
45 minutes, 45 seconds.
Viewer discretion is advised. So we now enter the Chronicler's Corner, and a bit of a preface. This is going to be pretty short because most information is public about the Bohrok-Kal. However, Bohrok-Kal definitively did survive the events and was just floating around in orbit of Aqua Magna. So when Aqua Magna and Bottomless Magna reformed into Spherus Magna, it was just disintegrated in the atmosphere when it started going 8 billion miles an hour.
Which presumes that it was alive that whole time.
Yep.
Which is like
a really long time.
I mean, it's not like an absurdly long time, but it's multiple years.
The time span of Bionicle is weirdly condensed. Like it's like
Yeah.
a year, 2 years maybe.
I feel like it's a little more
all
than
the way
that.
through Glatorian.
I think it's a little bit more than that, but it's not that
Glatorian
much.
does not last very long.
Huh.
Well, but one thing that kind of throws your timeline off a little bit is that you have 2 whole years that are prequels, so that does throw that.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is canonically, the timeline of Mata waking up to going to Mata Nui is like, it's really fast, really condensed, right? Because Bohrok-Kal happened immediately after Bohrok. Bohrok happened immediately after they defeat Makuta the first time. So it's like, there's almost no time. And then 2000, Mask of Light happens pretty soon after Bohrok-Kal.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's condensed for sure. So events happen very fast in sequence. So one of the other facts is that the Kal were possibly made from some version of Hortica venom. So that's not confirmed because we don't know where they got it. I always thought they were made by the energized protodermis. The Bahrag just had access to, to make new.
Which would explain the silver armor, because the Toa Nuva also got silver armor.
That's what I thought. But all the source books are like, no, it was probably some form of Hortica venom. I'm like, that doesn't make much sense to me, but I don't even know where the Bahrag would get Hortica venom from. Yeah. They don't interact with much, but it is kind of interesting to think if they did have access to outside resources. It's like, what else could the Bahrag do? It just seems like a weird loose end. Third is the Bahrag, since they're still around, they probably actually made new Bohrok-Kal in case something bad happened again. Which I'm like, if they had more access to it, or if they used energized protodermis, that'd be interesting to see the Bohrok-Kal on Spherus Magna, right? It's like, oh no, a bunch of Toa-powered jerkwads running around. I think it'd just be funny.
And since the Chronicle can share memories,
that
also could mean that there's a potential that the Nuva actually meet up with the Bohrok-Kal again.
Rematch.
That's some story fodder if anyone wants to write a fanfic.
Mad. Like,
honestly, they have no one to blame but themselves. It's entirely their fault.
Well, yeah, but are you telling me that they would have any sort of accountability at all?
That's a good point. And then they just annihilate the Toa 20 times over, but never killing them. So then, lastly, the Bahrag, when he melted into the earth, presumably damaged the Great Spirit robot on the way to the planet's core. And I was like, oh, wow, that seems like kind of a plot hole, right? But I'm like, is Bohrok-sized, which compared to the size of the moon... A
literal plot hole.
Yeah. Which, when compared to the size of the moon, wouldn't do much damage at all, right? Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Southern Continent container, it has a massive hole that's pouring water through it with very little side effects to the overall GSR. So I'm like... Bohrok-Kal wouldn't cause much damage.
Yeah. I feel like there are a surprising number of holes in the GSR and minor damage that it's like when you're looking at things, you're like, yeah, that probably would have caused some damage to the actual robot itself.
Well, yeah, I'm like, that would cause it. But also this thing is, when I thought about it, incredibly resilient. Yeah. It fell onto a planet. So a moon-sized thing falling onto a planet from like full speed, presumably, and landing with no protection systems because it's completely unconscious and only being slightly damaged is really stupid impressive. I mean, we even see when it hits Makuta, like an entire planet hitting it just breaks open the back of the head. It's not like total catastrophic crumpling or anything. So I'm like, this thing was built to last. So
That's true.
good on the GBs for that.
I do have a question. You said that the Bahrag would show up again. So the Bahrag do get released at some point.
Yes.
But how?
The Toa Nuva.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Because Mata Nui has to be cleaned before
the GSR can be woken up.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Wait, so this happens when? After Mask of Light, or like
they release the Bahrag post Mystica.
Okay.
So it's in the web serials.
Gotcha.
it happens. Like a lot of stuff happens while Mata Nui is doing all of his adventures on Barra Magna. So
Yeah, most of the crazy lore happens like in the web serials, which is like Fantoka-ish to past Fantoka. Past Glatorian, actually. They have to do a bunch of stuff to wake up the Mata Nui robot or prepare for its waking up. So, yeah, that is all I have for lore. Move on to set/technical.
You are now entering the set and technical portion of the podcast. This is where we examine the real-world production and set design of the LEGO Bionicle toy line. All right, so there's actually not all that much to say about the Bohrok-Kal that hasn't already been said about the Bohrok, seeing as how they are essentially identical set-wise.
No. You see, they're silver, Jacob.
Yes, as I mentioned actually on all of them individually, but yes, they are silver mostly with a accent color which is identical to their accent color from the Bohrok, which is just so frustrating on so many levels, but it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
You just don't love silver as much as we do, Jacob.
I mean, I do actually like it. It looks very cool. It looks more intimidating than the Bohrok.
It does, that's for sure.
And I do like that it matches the Nuva look of that kind of that silver vibe. It looks cool. I do like it. I'm not gonna knock it too hard. So yeah, once again, we're up against Bohrok. Yeah, so they're silver with a solid color highlight. In construction and even piece count, they are identical to the Bohrok. They retailed for $8, and which was the same as the original Bohrok.
Mm-hmm.
And
twice the power, half the cost. No, twice the power, same cost. Not as good of a deal, but it's okay.
They all had 40 parts and identical play functions to the original Bohrok, and the colors changed. The faceplate was the same for all of them. It had a printed design with a different color, although the patterns on top were a little bit different for each one. Why they decided to do that, I have no clue. As far as I know, it has no lore implications, but it does look kind of cool. So
it does look really cool.
There you go. And then their shield pieces were different, entirely different, although they were all silver. So, once again, collectability is the name of the game. There are the same 8 Chrono designs. However, they all come in new, exciting metallic colors.
Ooh.
So, the 6 colors that they came in, according to Bricklink, are flat dark gold, which was the gold color that Bionicle was using at that time. Pearl dark gray, which is the normal dark silver color. Pearl sand blue, which is personally one of my all-time favorite Lego colors ever. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous color, and I will never forgive them for not making it anymore. And then there was Pearl Very Light Gray. Pearl Very Light Gray, which is a super weird color. It's just like a very light silver, almost white. You really don't see that like anywhere.
It's also strange that they use very and light as a description to a color. Mm-hmm. It's like, whereas it's like pearl sand blue. It's like, why not just make descriptor for this color rather than adding a ton of modifiers?
It's best to just not question the Bricklink category.
Right. These are the guys who think earth and stone are separate.
These are the guys who think that nougat is like orange. So there you go.
They have wacky chocolate bars over there in Denmark.
Yes, they do. Then there was reddish gold, which reddish gold was kind of like the precursor to what would be pearl gold later. So it's sort of a similar-ish color. And then we had metallic green, which was also a beautiful color, if you ask me.
Is it green?
You're not going to believe this? It was.
Whoa.
Wow.
I know. Metallic even.
Oh, that's too much.
Here's the crazy part. This now brings the total
the total
for 8 different Krana designs to 18 different colors. Okay? So 6 from the original Bohrok, 6 from the Bohrok-Va, and then 6 from the Bohrok-Kal. Okay? Which means if you wanted to collect all of the designs in all of their colors, just the production runs, we're not even talking about the metal ones that they made or any of like the weird one-offs, okay? In just their production colors, you would be collecting 144 Krana.
Dang.
In 2 years.
Yeah. To put that into perspective, that is the same number of pieces as 3.5 Bohrok.
Crazy.
That's crazy. You just make a Bohrok entirely out of Krana.
So you could either, have 3.5 Bohrok, or you could have every Krana in production color.
We know what the real answer is.
Which is just nuts. I mean, even compared to the Toa masks, it just blows them out of the water.
And masks have more versatility, whereas the Krana just go in the Bohrok.
Yeah. It's super interesting.
It does make me wonder though, like why so many? Did they, because like I said, it was 2 years, right? They had like 2 years before they'd move on to the next wave. So people would lose interest, presumably, right? They would lose interest. And so it's like if you really wanted to collect them all, you had 2 seasons of Bionicle to collect 144 Krana. Like, what were they thinking? What was Lego thinking? They're like, oh yeah, this is a achievable feat.
I have genuinely no clue what they were thinking at that point. It's a really absurd. I mean,
especially later on with the Bohrok-Kal Krana with their total lore uselessness. It's like, why would I want these? They don't do anything.
They looked cool, I guess.
Now, thankfully, they did come in like Chronicle mask packs. So I think you got 5 in a pack. I'd have to check that. But
did those mask packs came with the Nuva masks as well, right?
So these actually were specifically just Chronicle packs. They were called mask packs, but they only had Chronicle in them. So
sounds like Bohrok propaganda. Try these new masks. Oh, they're so good. Lee Koro citizens. What?
Bionicle is so weird, and you constantly are finding like weird things that they released, and it's just like, why did they do this? And only in like a very specific region or whatever, and it's just like
with Duracell batteries.
What was happening? Yeah.
The only thing weirder than Bionicle lore is Bionicle production.
We love Good Guy, Thomas. How dare you slander Good Guy?
Well, I wasn't slandering. I just say he's weird. Not the best thing ever.
How dare you?
I'm saying he's weird. That does not exclude him also being the best thing ever, which he is. Pardon my heresy.
Yeah. Get out of here with your Good Guy slander, you heretic.
Call me a bad guy the way I slander Good Guy.
Yeah, so the Bohrok, they all had the same kind of silver color scheme, and then they had a solid color that matched their corresponding Toa element. So I'm going to go over specifically the shield parts from each Bohrok-Kal because they are the only unique pieces, but they actually had some interesting uses. So the Nuva Kal was the black one, and it had silver armor and green eyes. And then its shield piece, which was like this sort of digging looking, like some sort of drill looking disc thing, would see use in later high profile Bionicle sets. The shadowed one and Kitongu, or where that piece showed up in silver. Sweet. It also would be seen in a small Viking set. 7015 Viking Warrior challenges the Fenris Wolf, which is a mouthful for a set with under 100 pieces.
They had to fit all the lore into the set.
Yeah. Dude, those Viking sets had absurdly long names.
I really liked them. I think the Viking sets are
they're
cool.
So cool. I love them. And they had a lot of Bionicle pieces in them, actually. but it really elevated the vibe of those sets, I think. Like Viking to this day looks completely different from basically anything else Lego has ever done. And I really appreciate it. It has that like edgy fantasy vibe that you really only see in that era.
Yeah. No, I really like. This is getting too boxer though, which by its definition means off topic.
We're gonna just start saying if something's off topic, like it's boxer now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the next one was Bohrok-Kal, and Bohrok was red and silver with blue eyes, and it's notable because it was the only one that shield piece never came in any other set, so it was exclusive to Bohrok-Kal. So if you ever want to complete a Bohrok-Kal, guess you're gonna have to buy the actual set. So bummer.
Are you gonna Bohrok-Kal? Lego.
That was so stupid.
Boo. Go on. Forgive me.
Anyway, next up is Bohrok-Kal, silver and white with light blue eyes. Korok's shield piece was this like really industrial looking sort of snowflake thing. It was very different looking from all the other ones. A lot of negative space. And it came in two very notable sets. 8596 Toa Nuva, which we will be talking about very soon.
I don't know him at all.
And this is probably the most notable one. 4504, the original Millennium Falcon. It was used as a hyperdrive piece. It was like the top of the hyperdrive. So correction, the Millennium Falcon that this piece came in 4504 was not the first Falcon. It was actually the second Falcon that was released. Although this one was a significant improvement from the first Falcon.
Yes.
The first one is, I'm just going to come out and say it. It's ugly. It does not look good.
It's honestly insulting.
It's really bad. The second one is actually looks like the Millennium Falcon for starters and introduces that sort of like design language that we would start to see. I think in actually every single Millennium Falcon that would release after that. So,
yeah.
Anyway, okay, so Bohrok-Kal was silver and green and had red eyes. And it had a sort of claw-like shield piece with a lot of negative space in the center. And this piece would be seen on another set that we will be talking about in the near future here, Takua and Puku. It was used as Puku's claws. It would also be seen later in 2007, also in Bionicle, but this time recolored to pearl dark gray, which was a
But not pearl,
color.
very dark gray.
I have, you know what? I would not surprise me if that existed. Yeah, so pearl dark gray was a color that was slowly being introduced and became really popular in like that 2006, 2007 era. So we would see that claw shield piece be used in 8940 Karzani and 8924 Maximus and Spinax, both in 2007. Great sets, by the way. All right, so next up we have Bohrok-Kal, which was silver and brown with green eyes. It had a sort of like two-pronged shield piece that would work perfectly as sort of like a horn helmet shape and be used in none other than
Boxor.
Wrong.
Aw.
Viking, you silly goober. And it shows up 3 times in one of my all-time favorite Lego sets, 7019 Viking Fortress against the Fafnir Dragon,
Heck
which
yeah.
is just an incredibly iconic set. And that piece worked shockingly well as a Viking shield for some reason. However, before that, though, in 2003, this part would be recolored in red and used as part of one of the strangest things Lego has ever done. It was used as shoulder pads on the Technic System Hybrid hockey line in set 3540 Puck Passer. So hockey was a weird thing that Lego did. This is a boxer that we're going on right now.
Yeah, I noticed.
They did this weird thing where they were like, okay, we're going to release this. They had like a sub theme that was called sports at the time.
Clever naming.
And then they were like, all right, we're going to do like this hockey thing. And they did 3/4 of the sets were Technic sets. And then like another like quarter of the sets were system sets that used minifigures. And like half of them were branded with like NHL stuff and half of them weren't. And the Technic ones had this feature where you would like they were like little hockey players, and you would like slam on their heads and they would like be able to hit a puck. So weird. They used a bunch of Bionicle parts. It looks so unnatural. Some of the weirdest, ugliest sets I've ever seen. And not only that, though, those were like the mainline sets, but the hockey sets also had these tiny Taraga sized guys that, like, if you didn't know, you would think that they were Bionicle, because it literally uses, I think, all Bionicle parts.
Are those the one with the weird hockey mask?
No,
faces?
they use the Nuva shoulder pads
What
as their
the
faces.
heck?
Yeah, these are the mainline sets I'm talking about. So there were like these even smaller ones that you would like squeeze their feet together to launch the puck. It's so weird.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
I have no clue what Lego was doing at this point, but for whatever reason, a lot of those like hockey player dudes used Bohrok armor or Bohrok shields as like shoulder pads. So all the other ones used parts from the original Bohrok, but for whatever reason, this one part got recolored to red.
Lego was high off that Chrono mask money, and they're just like, give it a mask and make it do something. Wow!
So weird, dude. Anyway.
In their coke-fueled rampage, some guys like, hockey, they saw they had masks and pushed it through.
I hope you all enjoyed that bizarre tangent into hockey boxer.
I apologize, Lego team. I'm sure you don't do coke regularly.
So, lastly, to round out our Bohrok-Kal,
get it round.
we have, because they're round.
Yep.
Wow, creative. Real original. So Bohrok-Kal was the silver and blue Bohrok with orange eyes. Okay. And Galak's shield, this is a piece that shows up a lot, especially in Bionicle, but it shows up kind of everywhere. The Galak shield is a piece that I guarantee you've seen, even if you aren't familiar with the Bohrok-Kal necessarily. If you're familiar with Bionicle, I'm sure you've seen this piece. So this one is actually unique because it was recolored into 3 different colors, and it's the only one of these shield pieces that made it all the way through the whole Bionicle line, all the way through 2010. So it was last used in 2010.
Crazy.
Yeah, super interesting. Some of the sets that was included in the original silver color, or as Bricklink likes to call it, pearl light gray, was 8953 Makuta Icarix, 8622 Nadiki, 8941 Raka T3, and most notably 8998 Toa Mata Nui.
Ooh.
The big one. So this part actually did manage to break into a non-Bionicle line, seeing use in the Star Wars Technic sub-theme in 4481 Hailfire Droid, which is a very cool set. And it was also used in a Bionicle playset, the Paraka Stronghold, which I do not have the number for. Yeah, so it saw a lot of use in that original pearl light gray color. And then it was recolored into flat dark gold, which is the original Bionicle gold that was used, kind of that darker gold color, and would be used in 8762 Toa Aruni. Its final appearance in pearl gold was in 7138 Rakshi of the Bionicle Stars fame, and that was it. So it was actually technically part of the golden armor. It was the shield of the golden armor. So
that's crazy, because when I think about that piece, I do not associate it with Bohrok-Kal.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
I just think of it as just like another Bionicle piece.
It's a very elegant looking piece that's like simultaneously iconic, but also just very useful.
Yeah.
You know, like it's...
I use it for armor all the time, just like on the side of like a Toa's like armor leg or something.
Yeah, it's just a great looking piece that just works in a variety of contexts with a very auspicious end, actually. So that piece is a good one to end on. Great legacy. Yeah, I like that piece. So one thing I did want to talk about, though, real quick, was the Bohrok-Kal Kaita. So they existed. Of course, they did. And unlike the Bohrok Kaita, which were super similar, the Bohrok-Kal Kaita were not at all. So here is the Bohrok-Kal Kaita jaw, which was the Levok, the Korok, and the Galak. And this is what it looks like.
Holy moly, it's like got treads and it looks more like a tank than like a thing.
It is a really strange looking creature that I do not like very much. However, the Kaita Za, which was the other three, so the Toa Nuva, the Bahrag, and the Nuva, was actually kind of cool. It really mostly just looks like a Bohrok with bigger arms.
Yeah.
But
it just wants to give you a big ol' hug.
yeah. I don't hate this one though. I kind of hate the other one.
I hate pretty much all the combiners. I don't.
But this one was cool
Botor
because
is the only good combiner.
This one was cool though because its function, you could like squeeze so instead of like having the neck pop out, it had the shield pieces attached, so it would like swing out the shield pieces. And
okay, that's actually cool.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. So like it could like attack with the weapons. So I did like that. They at least tried to give them a function this time. So props to them. Anywho, that's all I got for that part. Any questions about the sets?
No, I think the Bohrok-Kal just look very cool, and the ones with green eyes are my personal favorite. The green eyes just seem so like menacing. Yeah,
I agree.
It gives them a unique vibe.
You gotta love the trans orange too.
Trans stands for transubordination. Stands for transubstantiation. That's what I meant to say. To all our Catholic viewers out there.
You are now entering the community portion of the podcast. In this section, we showcase some of our favorite creations from talented and passionate members of the Bionicle fandom.
So, moving on to the community section. This will be pretty short because the Bohrok-Kal seems slightly unloved by the community, which makes me sad. So if you have any fan art, I really want to see it. But the first we have is by Demit Soru on Tumblr, which is a Bohrok-Kal Kaita redesign. So it imagines them in their more organic insectoid shape, but I think they look really sick. They have these super long wings, colored carapace with black base color.
They're much more organic looking, and it's a cool take on it. I would say that the resemblance is nothing really at all like the actual sets.
Which is only an improvement.
I was going to say, which is not, I'm not complaining about it. So, but I do like the original thought there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That said, if I saw these, I would never, ever, ever guess that they were in any way, shape, or form related to Bionicle.
Yeah, that's true.
But they clearly say Kaita Ja, Kaita Za, Jacob. Are you blind? Are you one of our viewers, Jacob? So, the next one is by Flame Dramon on the BZ Power board. And he has their Bohrok-Va Kal. So they have all of the Bohrok-Kal shield pieces, but they're Bohrok-Va. And they have silver highlights as part of their design. And I think they look really neat.
I do really like them. The Korok looks a little strange.
Yeah, because it covers so little. It doesn't look like a head. It more looks like he has like a
he has like hair. He has like a headdress on. It is more what it looks like.
Yeah, it's like his. Like,
I don't necessarily dislike it. It's just funny.
Honestly, it kind of looks like he has broccoli on his head.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, he's just a Gen Z kid.
What?
Because they call him broccoli.
You know the broccoli hair?
The broccoli haircut?
No. Like Superman
Sam hasn't seen a kid in ages.
It's not like I have one.
No.
It's an interesting choice for the tools for some of these. The Bahrag has pohatu toes.
It fits with the theme of just giving the Bohrok-Va whatever the heck you had on hand.
Yeah.
Like the Bohrok-Kal just has Nuva shoulder plates.
Yep.
That's his thing. And I can see Bionicle making all of these canon decisions.
I mean, Bohrok-Va had Bohrok teeth as its weapon.
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go.
It's just cannibalizing its fellows.
I think. Oh, I know. No. Bohrok-Va had the katanas. Sorry. It was
Bohrok-Va.
Yeah, Bohrok-Va.
So Bohrok-Va always finding the weirdest junk.
Yeah.
For sure. But I think the Nuva Kal and the Bohrok-Va Kal look the coolest.
I like Galak, actually. I think Galak.
Well, yeah, it has the Galak shield piece, which, as we discussed, is based.
And it has
useful.
the trident piece, which I'm a huge fan of.
Good. The trident piece is cool. One beef I have with the trident piece is it only looks like a trident. Like you can't use it for anything else.
Yeah.
I like how sorry. I like how all the names are written in Metoric too.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool touch. So props to Flame Dragon. And that is all that we have for today's episode. Any closing thoughts?
The Bohrok-Kal are pretty darn cool.
Yeah. That's what you say at the end of every episode. Give a detailed summary. What do you like about the Bohrok-Kal? What did you learn about the Bohrok-Kal?
Yeah,
Name your
Samuel.
most interesting
I
Bohrok-Kal facts.
Okay, I feel like I kind of say them as we go through the episode. So
Well,
when we get to the
restate them
end,
for the conclusion.
well,
Did you learn no English?
Okay, my two favorite Bohrok-Kal facts is that the Levok got launched into the stratosphere
Heck
and
yeah.
just remained there until he got crushed by planets. I think that's pretty cool.
Pretty funny.
And I also, it's not really a fact, but I just like their personalities. Like they're just good antagonists, and that makes it fun. It makes it a fun story. So I would say those are my two favorite things about the Bohrok-Kal.
Excellent. Jacob, what are your two favorite things about the Bohrok?
Their powers. I love their powers. They're so fun. Vacuum is an insane ability that is just like, it never shows up again. We will never see it again, but it's fun while it lasted.
Yep.
Much like Hafu. Great stuff.
Don't say that
is
about Hafu. He still has
Highlander.
one episode to go until the dedicated Hafu episode.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for the dedicated Hafu episode.
If we get donated $1 billion on Patreon, we'll make a Hafu episode.
Daddy,
we don't have a Patreon.
I was gonna say that's impressive considering we don't have a Patreon.
I also liked learning about how the call were meant to be used. Like I didn't know like kind of what their purpose was, but I like that the function of like protecting the queens, even though maybe they shouldn't have given them so much intelligence. That was probably a mistake.
I mean, Taunok's case, they didn't give him any intelligence.
I also hate Korok so much.
Yeah, he's a jerk. I'm so glad he just gets disintegrated into nothing with his own power. I'm like, yeah, eat it, turd muffin.
Turd muffin.
Yep. What I like about the Bohrok-Kal is how it makes the Bahrag seem more competent, because they're like, okay, the Bahrag would never think they'd get defeated in the first place because they have true invincibility when they're next to each other, right? So they got captured, which is the only real way to defeat them, and captured specifically in solid protodermis, which blocks their thought signals. So it's like, what are the odds of that? Pretty much zero, right? And then they're smart enough to even have a backup plan to release them, right? So it's like, okay, it makes the Bahrag retroactively more intelligent, more menacing, and also more understandable.
Yeah.
Because like they just have one mission to complete, and they will do it to the best of their ability. So that's what I like about the Bohrok-Kal. Well, if that's all, we'll see you next time here on the Barraki Talk Show.
I was going to say, how are our blind viewers going to... I mean, our blind listeners, they're not going to see us the next episode.
Good point.
We love our blind listeners.
If you love them so much, why don't you non-canon?
Love is not canon. Also, call.
Bet you didn't see that one coming.
Got him. So many people are getting a big old smoochy kiss.
That was 13 calls, just for those of you who
Wait, you were counting?
Absolutely not. I think if anyone bothers to send us in a number, we'll just say, yep, you got it.
Well, it's probably going to be within 200.
I think that for the video, I'll just put a call counter.
Yeah. Ding, 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 ding.
Now, the question is, can I differentiate call as in CALL and KAL? So I have two call counters. So at the very beginning, when he says call me, well, no, you say Bohrok, call me, maybe. So is that, yeah.
That's K.
I will say on that last list of calls, a certain number of them were CALL and a certain number of them were KAL.
Just
But
an
I will not be
unspecified
I will
amount.
not be specifying which was which.
Anyway, so that ends today's episode of the Barraki Talk Show. Good night. Stay safe.
We love you.
Be dangerous. Do whatever the heck you want.
Go live your life like Bohrok-Kal. Go
Yeah.
have fun. Antagonize some Toa.
Carpe diem. They did all that in like a week tops. So you too can destroy the island of Mata Nui.
but please don't. We have more episodes we need to do.
Well, not on Mata Nui. Well, one more on Mata Nui. Then it's free game.
Are you not
Keep
going
going.
to say what the next episode's going to be about?
Make sure to tune in next episode on The Mask of Light, the movie, the podcast episode.
Would you like to say that a different way?
No, I think I nailed it. This brings us to the end of today's podcast. If you enjoyed the discussion, please follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you like to watch instead of listen, you can also find us on YouTube. The Barraki Talk Show is only made possible thanks to viewers like you. Thank you.